we have quite a few folders inside of the node modules. Now, this is a very simple application. In a real-world application, we're going to have lots of folders here, and the size of the node modules folder will grow significantly. In fact, in a real-world application, your node modules folder may be a few hundred megabytes. When checking your source code into a source control repository, you don't want to include this folder, because every time someone checks out your code from the repository, they have to wait for hundreds of megabytes of data to be downloaded. The same is true if you want to copy this source code from one machine to another. Let's say you want to give this to your friend by email or via Dropbox. You don't want to send all the content of the node modules folder. Now, you might ask, but what about our application dependencies? Our application is not going to work without these dependencies. Well, the good news is that all our dependencies are stored here in package.json file. So currently we have these two dependencies and we have NPM. So we can easily restore these versions of these dependencies on any machine. Now to simulate this, I'm going to delete this node modules folder. So delete. Okay, it's gone. Now back in terminal, we can restore all these dependencies by running npm install or I. So npm looks at our package.json, and then it will download those dependencies from npm registry. Now you can see our node modules folder is back, along with all these dependencies. So that's why we should exclude this node modules folder from our source control repository. Now, assuming that you're using Git, let me show you how to exclude this folder from Git. If you use a different source control management tool, the steps are different, and I leave it up to you to figure out how to do it. So back in terminal, I'm going to initialize a Git repository in this folder. So git init. So here we have a Git repository. Now if we run git status, you can see these are the files that we need to add to our Git repository. So index.js, node modules, package-log.json, which was created by NPM when we installed an NPM package. This is purely for NPM to do its job. We don't have to worry about this file. And finally, we have package.json. Now, we want to exclude the node modules folder here. So back in VS Code, in the root of our folder, I'm going to add a file with the extension git ignore. So this file doesn't have a name. The extension is git ignore. And here we can list all the files and folders that should be excluded from our Git repository. In this case, node underline modules with a slash to indicate that this is a folder. Save. Now back in the terminal, if we run git status one more time, we can see that we no longer have the node modules folder here. So previously we had node modules, but now we don't have that. Instead, we have git ignore. So this is how we exclude the node modules folder from our Git repository. And finally, we run git add period and git commit with a message, our first commit.